Hi guys, Nick here again with Lime Tree Laser Co. and Haotian Lasers. Doing another video today. This is going to be a two-part video on my process for engraving a 3D object, whether it's mugs, glassware, just about any kind of drinkware. So today we're going to be using this white laser mug from JDS. It's a 15-ounce ceramic mug. They engrave great, and they do present some troubles for UV lasers with that deep curve on it. So this is going, as I think I said, this is going to be a two-part video. We're going to go through creating the model using Illustrator and Fusion, and then we're going to bring it into Lenmark. We're going to position it, the STL, in the software. We're going to position it physically, focus, apply our graphics, and then we're going to engrave it. So I hope you enjoy. Follow along. Thanks. So this is where we're going to start with our object. We need to get a reference image. So this is our little setup here. I've just got the black on the back to show a little bit more contrast. And we need to absolutely make sure that we have a measurement reference. So this is my square that is going to be included in the image, and that's all we need is basically a picture like that. Now the trick here is you want to stand as far back as you can and use the zoom on your camera. If we were to take a picture up close like this, we're going to be introducing a lot of lens distortion, which is going to throw off our spline drawing. So get back as far as you can and zoom in. Okay, that's almost identical. That's exactly the picture we need right there. So let's take that photo and head over to the computer. Okay, so here we are in Illustrator. I've just created a new file. This is 12 by 12 inches. It doesn't really matter as long as it's bigger than the physical size of your mug. And the only reason I'm using imperial here is just because that's what my ruler was. Typically I prefer to work in standard metric, but we're not doing that. So with the 3D modeling, it really doesn't matter all that much as long as you stick to one unit from start to finish. So let's get started here. Let's also open the picture we took with our camera of our mug. We'll open that, and we're just going to select it, copy it, and paste it into our main file. And we're already done with that. Okay, so it's obviously quite large. Let's just quickly resize it. Hold Shift and Alt to keep it centered and your dimensions locked. Let's do something like that. So the first thing we need to do is we need to straighten the image. This actually is quite straight to begin with, so I'm actually going to throw it off a little bit just to show you how to fix it. So let's give it a bit of a rotation. Okay, now you can see we're not straight. So let's straighten it. So let's just start with let's just create a box to reference, and we'll move it up against our straight edge. We know our square is a straight line, so let's use that for our reference. We'll get the box in nice and tight. Select the image, hit R to rotate, and then we'll place our rotation anchor right on the top there. And then we'll come down here to the bottom and just rotate it straight against our reference. So now what I always do is I'd go to the bottom, get it touching there, and then I'm going to replace my rotation anchor at the bottom and move back up to the top just to take care of that little bit of a gap. There we are. Now take your time with a lot of this stuff. It gets a lot faster the more you do it. Now I'm happy with how straight that is, but for the sake of brevity, in most of this video, I'm going to be going a little quicker. Nobody needs to be watching me play with handles and nodes and all of that for the video. So I'll likely be doing some refinement off camera. But the steps I show you, I won't be doing anything different. So really just take your time with that. Okay, moving on. We've got our image straight. Now we need to scale it. So let's use this same box and let's choose a distance from our ruler to reference it off of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose 4 inches. I'm going to use a 4-inch stretch for this ruler, and we're going to make this box also 4 inches tall. Here we go. So we're a little bit off. So again, let's zoom in. We're going to move this box onto our reference size mark. So we've got an 8 there. This isn't the best picture, but these are 32nds of an inch. So, you know, if we're a 1/24th off, that's not going to make that big of a difference. So again, get it up on that mark. Now we're going to hit S to scale. We're going to put our scale anchor there. And again, zoom in. We're going to resize this image until the bottom of our box lines up with our 4-inch mark. Now I've got the box selected, so I'm going to have to go back and deselect that to make sure I have my image selected. And again, hit S. Place our anchor. And start resizing. Now remember to hold shift when you're resizing, when you click and drag, so that you don't mess up your proportions. There we go, 4 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4 inches on the ruler. Our box is 4 inches tall. So we are now scaled and our image is good to go. Let's delete that. Okay. Now I also like to just center things, and I will also just lock this. Sometimes it makes things a little bit easier when you're drawing over top of it. But first, let's change the opacity of this a little bit. Sure, that looks pretty good right there. Okay. And now we can lock it. And then we're going to grab our pen tool. Let's do a transparent fill. And let's do a red stroke. Now this you should be able to follow the exact same steps whatever graphics program you're using, as long as you have the ability to output export a DXF. You can do this in Inkscape or Corel, or I have Illustrator, so that's what I use. So now we need to draw an outline. It's pretty simple, and we only want to do half of the outline. We don't need to do the whole thing. So we're going to draw this outline here, and I always start with just creating a line the entire diameter of whatever you're working on. A nice, just straight line. Let's start it there. We'll hold shift. We'll bring it right over to the other corner. And then that's going to make it easier to make sure we're only creating half of this line. And we'll see that shortly. Next up is, and again, I'm just going to do this quickly. We're just going to follow the curve of our cup. And again, I'm not an expert at vector lines with nodes and handles, but I think we're getting pretty good. Right down to the bottom. Looks like we got one more we need to make. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Let's just undo that. I know this would have been easier with the curve tool, but I don't think any other editors have that, so we're just going to continue using this. Let's go there. Okay. And right to the bottom. And then again, we'll hold shift and we'll do a straight line off to the side. This bottom one doesn't matter nearly as much. Okay, that's a pretty good outline, I think. I think we'll actually end up using that for the model. Next thing I like to do is just draw another straight line. Hold shift to keep it. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Just a little bit of a glitch there. Sometimes when you're doing screen recording, your screen recording shortcuts overlap with your Illustrator shortcuts. So let's continue here. So we draw a straight line, and we want to align that with the other line we've already created. So in Illustrator, we're just going to select them both, and then select our reference and align center. So that's aligned. Okay. Now we're done with our picture. So let's unlock that and get rid of it. That's what we're left with. Illustrator has a nice tool called the Shape Builder, which lets us get rid of those overlapping lines. You can just use node snapping to do essentially the same thing in any other software. And we just want to make sure we also join those corners so that we have one continuous shape. That's it. That is a lot of work for that small line, but this process works great if you're doing, more complex glassware with, compound curves and whatnot. Works for just about anything that, can be rotated around. So that's our spline is what we're going to call it. So we're done here. We're going to export that. We're going to export it as a DXF. We'll call that mug spline. Always just make sure 1 unit equals 1 unit. So 1 inch equals 1 unit. If you're in millimeters, it'll be 1 millimeter equals 1 unit. All right, let's head over to Fusion. Okay, here we are. Now, this is a very simple process for just about any 3D modeling software. I use Fusion because I use it for a few other things, but I know there are definitely other software options. I'm not going to get into properly nesting components because this is very simple and we don't even need to worry about that. So this is a process in Fusion to take our DXF spline into a 3D model that we can use in Lenmark. So we're going to start with drawing a sketch on our XY plane, and we're going to insert that DXF that we just created. There's mugspline.dxf. Now we created it in inches, so we're making sure our units are in inches, and just hit OK. Oh, and it looks like we had a little box hiding there, so we can get rid of that. And that's all we need. Finish the sketch. And then we're a little far away from our origin, so we're just gonna bring it back closer. That's all we need to do. And now we're going to do what in Fusion is called a revolve. I've seen it called rotate, lathe, revolve. I think I've seen it called twist before. Essentially, it's just going to spin the spline around an axis. So we select that. You can see that the profile is already selected, and this is the axis that we want to be using right here. Click on that, there we go. We have a 360-degree mug. Now another thing I like to do just to keep things a little bit easier on Lenmark is I like to chop the bottom half of this off because we don't really need it. And there is another benefit that we're going to see when we start manipulating this in Lenmark. So to do that in Fusion, we just create another new sketch on our XY plane. Sometimes this gets a little funny. There we go. And we're just going to create a rectangle that's bigger than our model. That's all we need. And then we're just going to extrude it down. Make sure our operation is set to cut. Hit OK. Now we've only got half of it. That's all we need. Okay, there we go. Let's export this into a mesh. All we're going to do is click the export button. You don't need to do the 3D print. Just click export into an STL. We'll leave that in millimeters. Why not? Fusion knows. So, but if you are in another software and you need to make sure everything is matched up, then just keep it in inches. You'll know right away when you get it into Lenmark if it's not sized properly. That's what our mesh is going to look like. I find medium refinement is plenty. The more triangles you have in your model, the slower it's going to be in Lenmark. And I'm not going to lie, Lenmark is not great at handling 3D models, but it is what it is. Oops. To make sure we get this out, we just need to unclick Send to 3D Print Utility. We can hit OK. That's a good place to save it, and we'll just name it Mug. And save. And there we have it. Sorry about that. We don't need that. Okay, so that's our model. So we have an STL ready to go, ready to get into Lenmark. So we're going to finish this video here, and we'll start another one over in Lenmark. So keep watching. Okay, so here we are in Lenmark 3ds. We're going to import our model, we're going to position it, and then we're going to move over to the laser and get the mug itself aligned and ready to focused and ready to go. So just to let you know, for this project we are using our 120mm working space. So let's get started. So first thing to do is import our model. And there it is. Nice thing with Fusion, and I'm sure most other software, is that it will align that bottom face to the bottom of your working space. So there's a few things we have to do. First thing is to select the model and move it to our XY 0 point. Easy enough. So that will be directly centered under the laser. Now we just need to bring it up. Now the reason I like to do only the half model with the bottom cut off is that we now already have our radius measurement from here to here. So if we bring up our move window, we can see that Z height, that is our radius. So all we need to do is take our calculator, take our working depth, subtract that radius, 48.88163, and that is how far up we need to move our model. So we'll just copy that, paste it into Z, click the relative position, hit OK. That's it. And now you can see we are exactly where we need to be. So it's as easy as that. Next thing I'm going to do is let's bring in a graphic to engrave. So we'll import this nice Haotian logo. I like to bring it up to 120 for positioning purposes. That's obviously way too big. Let's try 65, and we'll move it up a little bit. That looks like it might be a little big. When it starts wrapping around that mug, I think this text is going to be look a little strange. I don't have any problems with it actually engraving. I just think it's just going to look a little weird. Let's try 60. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. Okay, let's move into our hatch. These mugs, and with most glassware, I like to use an optimized hatch. No outline, with all the optimization options on. This is already set correctly, a 45.02 millimeter line distance. We're going to do a second pass at 135. We'll hit apply. I think that's going to look nice. So let's move that back down to 0. And let's project it onto our model. Now, I will say with these STLs, you do want to try to keep them as basic as possible. When you start getting, a pretty complicated model and a pretty complicated graphic, it will bog down when you're applying the graphic to the model. Once it's on there, the system seems to run fine, but it can take a few minutes sometimes. Let's head over to our parameters. We don't want to be using default. With these mugs, I find for my 5 watt, 450 speed, 50 frequency, 90 pulse width on my inverted pulse width. So 100 is full power for me. That seems to work fine. Now, one last thing I'm going to do, though, which I find really makes aligning the mug under the laser easy, is I like to draw just a small rectangle at the very top edge of my model. You're not going to see it while you're dragging it because it is underneath. And then I will also project that. So it's a little tough to see, but there is going to now be a reference line at the very top edge. And it doesn't need to be centered. We'll move over the laser and I'll show you exactly what that does. Now to do that, I'm also going to check the selected mark option for our preview. And I'm also going to make sure I have the rectangle selected. Now my laser's off right now, so I can't hit the preview button. I'm going to turn it on and start the preview. We'll get the camera over there and I'll show you exactly how this little box helps lining things up. So let's head over to the laser. So here we are at the laser, and you can see we've got that preview mark started, and here's something really important, is that this is not focused yet. And what I wanted to demonstrate is that you need to have your laser focused to your object before you start aligning it, because what you're going to see as I move this laser head down into focus, this is going to move because we're using it on a 3D object. So watch what happens when I bring it down. Look how much it starts to move. So let's get this focused. We're going to focus to the highest edge. There we are. Now we simply just need to move the mug on our XY table so that the top of this rectangle is just aligned with the top edge of the mug. There we are. As simple as that. We are ready to engrave. Okay, so we're back at Lenmark here, and we're just doing our final prep to get this marked onto our mug. So let's do a quick little inventory here. We've got our model placed properly. We've got our graphic projected and hatched the way we want it. We have our parameters set the way we would like. We've focused and we've placed the actual object under our laser properly. So we are ready to go here. So we'll delete that rectangle that we put on because we don't need to mark that. Let's delete that. We can turn off the selected mark option. We're going to preview the real geometry. We're ready to go. Let's head back to the laser. Okay, we're ready to fire the laser here. One other quick tip I'd like to quickly give. If you're going to use a rotary like this for holding glassware, is to get yourself a good engineer square. Make sure the face of your rotary is square to the table. When you've done your calibration, you've made sure that everything else is square and level. That's a really quick way, and a lot of times rotaries can be out by a degree or two. So just make sure that the face of your rotary is square, especially with glassware. These bugs engrave quite well, so we're not quite as worried about it. But again, all things UV, you want to be as accurate as you can. So there's our preview. We can do a quick glance at the screen. It looks like we're where we need to be. Let's fire it. Okay, so there we have it. That's the finished product. Thanks, guys, for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it's a bit of a learning experience for some people. You know, and again, this is the process that I use on a lot of things. You know, this is a pretty long video, but when you're not stopping to record and explain things, it does go very quickly. So thanks again for watching, and take care. Happy lasering.